Hello, welcome to A Course of Love, Chapter 18, and this chapter is titled The Mind Engaged. We're moving into this interesting territory where, although our own awakening seems to be a product of grace, there are still things that we can do with our willingness, that we're being instructed on how to engage the mind in a positive way. So that's kind of the material that we're working with right now. He begins by talking about the idea of the fall. Now, whether you think of the fall in Christian terms of Adam and Eve eating from the tree of knowledge, or the fall being the decision to try to be separate, that was a mistake. However it is you think of it, if you think of it as real and a mistake, then you're going to stay stuck there. So he really wants us to examine how we feel about that concept, which, by the way, is universal in all religions. It's not just the Christian religion. There's the story of the fall in every religion there is. So verse 1 tells us, your perception of the fall makes of the fall a curse. This interpretation would be inconsistent with a benevolent God and a benevolent universe. This is the root issue when people say, I don't believe in God. How could a loving God cause people to suffer this way? Why would a loving God do these bad things to me? This is the seed belief of that thought system. The fact that somebody outside of us has done something to punish us or to torture us. The idea of a fall accepts the possibility of separation, which is actually impossible. If you believe you've fallen from where you're supposed to be, it necessitates the idea that you think that's possible. And he's telling us it's not possible. In verse 4, you have not fallen from unity. You have not fallen from God. Nothing real happened here. Nothing real happened. We have, in fact, created the experience of feeling separate, of thinking we were separate, because we wanted to have that experience, apparently. But nothing real happened. None of us has ever left wholeness or each other. Hasn't happened. So this is a really fundamental idea. If there's anything left in your mind of the idea that we did something wrong that has to be corrected, let that drop now. Nothing wrong has been done here. Nothing permanent has happened. Nothing has actually happened. It's all just for the experience of it. So he moves to the purpose of the body. So we find ourselves in the body. You can't deny that. You know, your body has needs that it insists get taken care of. We are experiencing ourselves through this body. So he wants us to put the idea of why we have a body in perspective here. What the body actually is a learning device given by a loving creator. So who is that creator? Is that someone outside of us? No, there's only one thing happening here. So this learning device was given as the perfect tool through which we can learn who we actually are, have this experience of separation, and learn what it's all about. Now, what the body is not, it is not your home. You do not live there. It is not a separate dwelling place. We have the illusion, the perception that we are each in our own little separate bodies, but it is not a separate dwelling place. It's a point of view that you can be aware of in the moment. It is also not a punishment. Oh, this is getting old is hard. It's the price you pay. That's insanity. The body is not those things. The body itself is neutral. And when you see the body for what it is, it can fulfill its function. So this is part of what's going to be brought back into alignment with the truth. Zooming out for the bigger picture, it's really the movie. The world is an extended projection. It's all happening in your mind and you're projecting it out. You are both in the internal world where there is no separation, and you're part of the projection. So you're both watching the character and you're participating through the character. Verse 8 tells us, you have not left your place as you view this movie and experience its sights and sounds, joys and sorrows. And yet you are also part of the projection. And this is where your awareness now abides, seemingly trapped on the screen, viewing everything from the two eyes of the one projected there. He's telling us, in fact, that's only part of what your experience is right now. There's a part of you that knows it's a movie and is watching, having fun. Verse 9, learning from unity requires an integrated mind and heart, or wholeheartedness. We talked about this in the last chapter, and we'll be talking about it a lot. A half-hearted approach to this learning will not work, nor will the attention of a split mind. So all that business that's going on in the mind, if we give it our attention and we have this half-hearted approach to, oh, well, I should see this through eyes of love, that's going to get you nowhere. This world was created from your wish to have the experience of separation. That's what it's here for. You wanted to have that experience. And even though it's not possibly separate, you're so powerful and so incredibly creative that you could create the experience even though it wasn't possible to actually have that experience. You could create the feeling and the essence of the experience. In order to do this, forgetting your unity was a requirement to have this experience. How in the world could you know what it was like to feel separate if you remembered you weren't? It was an essential element of this amusement park ride that you created to forget that you were one. Verse 10, the state in which you now exist was not only unbelievable, but also inconceivable to you in your natural state. Experience was required in order to alter your belief system, and is required now as well. So when this one thing had this idea that, wow, I wonder what it would be like to experience things separately, we had no idea how immersed we'd have to get in this thing in order to believe it. And if we couldn't believe it, if we didn't think it was real, what would be the point? We had to have the actual experience of feeling separate in order to have the fullness of what that would feel like. Now that we are coming back to remember what's actually going on here, we also have to have experience in order to alter our belief system and remember who we are. It doesn't come from ideas, it can't come from beliefs, it's got to come from actual experience. So that's where we're being led. Unity is a shared state, but each has to experience unity individually in order to change the belief system. So this is an interesting twist. We are all actually one, but because we decided to have this separate experience, we all have to remember separately. So these are the ways that we do that. Step one, we have to birth the idea of learning from unity. Now, what does this mean? The idea of learning from unity. Each of us individually has to entertain the concept of joining, of the recognition that there's only one thing happening and that we can learn from that. We can have experiences from that. Until that idea is birthed, because we are creative beings, until we birth that idea, we can't actually remember. And this can't come from another. It can't come from somebody else's experience, somebody else's report of their awakening, somebody else's spiritual ideas. It must be experienced from within. Each person individually has to have this idea like, oh, I'm really one here. I'm part of this one thing. Step 2 is participation in unity. So it's not just an idea, but you need to participate. And your next goal is to unite your mind and your heart. Mind and heart in conflict keep you from creating. Your heart knows. Your heart remembers who you are. Your heart knows there's only one thing going on. But your mind, up until now, has ruled everything. Has shut the heart down, defined it in another way. That's just how it's worked in the separated experience. Until now, your mind has ruled your heart. In the one mind, love rules all. Love being joining, allowing, accepting. We'll call it wholehearted, with the mind and heart together. So, step 1, birth the idea that maybe I could be part of the one thing. Maybe there is only one thing happening. Step 2, actually participate in it. In other words, this is an action. By allowing what is, allowing unity to teach you, you can become wholehearted and keep the mind from being in control all the time. So wholeheartedness then is a full expression of your power. As he told us, you can't create unless you're wholehearted. That's why all of the efforts at The Secret and creating your own reality, creative visualization, affirmations, they have very meager results. Even those who consider themselves masters at it, it's not infallible because we don't have the full expression of our power. It's only when our heart is whole, when we remember who we are and we've united those two selves, that we really can express our power. And this is what he's asking us to do. 1, dedicate all thoughts to union. You'll remember this from the previous chapters. So the thoughts that come up, don't try to refute them. Don't rationalize. Don't say, no, that's not true. I know that's not true because of this. No, we just say, I dedicate all thoughts to union. I dedicate all thoughts to union. And then the next step is to dedicate the self to unifying thought. So I now devote my personal self, the self of which I'm aware, not just my thoughts, but my whole self. I'm dedicating that to bringing my thoughts around to a place of unity, to bringing myself to a place of wholeheartedness. Verse 18 tells us what has been created cannot be uncreated. We created this separated world. We can't uncreate it. What has been created can, however, be transformed. And transformation occurs in time. Thus, transformation and miracles work hand in hand. So for Course in Miracles students, there's a familiar theme. A miracle steps out of time. This kind of transformation happens in time, where we step out of time in the transformation. Verse 20, unifying thought is more than a matter of focus or single-mindedness. It is also a matter of integrating the thought or language of your heart with that which you more naturally perceive as thought, the words and images that go through your mind. Okay, so what exactly does this look like? It's not merely repeating, okay, I'm dedicating myself to unifying thought, although that's part of it. Notice he says it also doesn't negate that we need to do that, to really take our willingness and set our intention to dedicate ourselves to unifying our thought. But it's also a process of integrating the thought or language of your heart, which is that which forgives, that which joins, that which sees that there's one thing going on and it's all good, with our thought processes. So what that might look like is a thought comes through that says, ooh, they don't like me. Okay. Now we say, I dedicate all my thoughts to union. And I'm looking at them and I'm realizing that there's only one energy between us. So it's kind of a two-step process. It's dropping the old, replacing it with this dedication. And then it's also integrating what our heart already knows into the thought process. So don't overthink it. Don't overanalyze it. Just be aware of it and watch it as it happens. And of course, help is always available. If you find yourself caught in a place where your thoughts seems to be separating you, ask for help. Ask for help. It's always there. Thanks for joining me. Oh, we're not done. I'm sorry. I thought that was the last slide. I'm just going to keep going. So he goes back to the body as a learning device. So we're picking that back up. And I drew a little diagram of this because I really wanted to make it clear. Okay, so we start with the body. And the body communicates experience to the mind. So the body has an experience and it communicates that to the mind. Then the mind reacts to the experience and sends a message back to the body. So can you see how the body is neutral? The body's not creating any of these experiences. The body's not coming up with them. It's having an experience, sending it to the mind. The mind then sends a message back to the body. That's how it's set up as a learning device. We've kind of messed it up though. The body's neutral. It does not experience, but conveys that which can be experienced back to you. You then relay a reaction back to it. This circular relationship makes it a perfect learning device, allowing the learner to choose both the experience and the reaction. So the learner gets to have it all. I get to choose what I want to experience in my body, and I get to choose how I'm going to react to that. And in this way I learn through this world that I've created. The problem is, as we proceed, because you misperceived the body as your home, there's no you to send the signals to. You think you're in the body. Who's the body going to send it to? This leaves a body in charge as both the experiencer and the interpreter. And the body's true function has been unrecognized. Oh, my body hurts. I'm at the mercy of my body. There's no mind to send it to. So what do we do with this information? We break it down. Really, the body has two major sensations, pain and pleasure. Pain equals lack of love. Pleasure equals love. So what that tells us then is when we experience pain, if we are resistant to it, we don't accept it. If the body has a backache, the body's back hurts. and it sends that signal to the mind. There's tension here. If the mind receives it, oh, I'm receiving the idea that there's tension here. Okay? I notice that. I notice that there's some restriction in that part of my body, in that part of the body. And then it reacts to it, saying, oh, let's stretch that. Let's love that. And of course, the heart always knows what the love reaction is. So it's not the mind that's choosing how, not what we think of as the mind, that's choosing how do I respond to this, but it's the wholehearted mind that says, oh, how do I love this? I'm always responding with love to whatever messages I'm getting from my body. If that means my body is experiencing cancer, I respond with love. The mind responds, oh, I love you. I accept you. I allow you. I'm fine with this. This is what's happening now. I join you. There's no resistance to what's happening. And so the cycle goes and the full experience is had. Where the pain comes in is where there's resistance. So this isn't telling us you're never going to have a cold again, although interestingly enough, there are very few of those experiences because of the fact that there isn't resistance in the body, and the body isn't sending forth as many signals that have been ignored on other levels. But it's saying that we don't judge what's happening and we respond with love. That's what this one thing is. We don't judge what's happening, and we always respond with acceptance and complete love. Verse 24, having no one to receive and reject feelings of pain and replace them with feelings of love causes all your distress. The self you have taken out of the learning loop is the self of love. So this all hinges, of course, on recognizing that love is not a shallow sentimentality. It's not what we think it should be. It's not rejecting the experience. It's responding with complete acceptance. It's the embrace. Really, it's the embrace. So I think that is the last slide in this presentation. Thanks for joining me. We'll see you in the next chapter.